Hi, my name is Mahesh, and in today's video, I'm going to talk about the why railways expenses regarding electricity purchases going to go up. Indian Railway is India's largest electricity consumer. It spends like 20,000 2.5 billion US dollars to buy electricity from to buy electricity for their trains and for offices from suppliers. So, why I'm going to cover why I am telling you this news uh, because railway had a dispute with state state grids, like who used to supply electricity to the railway. So now they have in disputes. So I'll explain the dispute. So over the past few years, the Indian Railway has bought electricity from two main sources. One is directly from the directly from the open market through a competitive bidding process. This means that power generating companies or Genox bid or offer to sell electricity to the railway, and the railways chooses the one that quotes the best price. They also trade excess. The second is they also trade excess electricity on the Indian Energy Exchange. So that is IEX. Simply put, they sell their surplus power during the day on the exchange, and they buy back power at the at night when the demand peaks and tariffs are low. So that's simply because the railway consume more power at night, since that's when most trains run, whereas power consumption is lower during the day, since that's when the most maintenance and repair work happens. But wait, it back then the railway sourced their power only from the state electricity supply companies like DISCOMs. That means distribution companies. But they realized that it was an expensive affair, because because a DISCOM is like a middleman, and buying it from them cost the railway 20% more. So the railway had a brainware through so so the railway had a brainwave railway had a brainwave. They thought, hey, how about we buy power directly from the uh, Geno hey like how about we buy power directly from the Genox through the bidding system? It could help save at least 3,000 crore over the next few years. They wrote an application to the Central Electricity Regulatory Commission and asked for permission. And the ACRC, which is Central Electricity Regulatory Commission, not only gave them the green signal, but also certified them as a deemed distribution license. So what does that mean? It simply meant that the railway didn't need to apply for a separate license to source. To it didn't need to apply for a separate license to source and supply electricity to its substations, maintenance areas, and railway stations. Other vendors in different states who fetch the electricity from railways, they were as good as Discom. Okay, but you can imagine that Discoms, like distribution companies, were not happy not happy with that, right? Because their railway is not buying electricity from them. Because whenever a big entity buys power directly from the market, discoms lose out. think of think of think of it this way: you are a food vendor at a railway station who source electricity from the railways. This means the state discom loses out and electric loses out on electricity revenue that is supposed to get from you. Now imagine this situation pan India. So the losses the losses could add up quickly for these discounts. So the ones in sat so uh, so the ones in states like West Bengal and Punjab complained to the APTEL, an authority that listens to appeals from the power, oil, and gas industry, that, that they were losing out on huge chunks of revenue because of the argument arrange, convenient arrangement for the railways. They demanded compensation. See, when a big commercial user see when a big commercial user procures electricity from places other than from the discoms, they still need a discom infrastructure, and that's what helps them to move the electricity from one place to another. So discoms need to be compensated. There is something called additional surcharge, AS, and there is also a cross subsidy charges, cross CSS, cross subsidy charges, that's paid so that discoms can provide subsidies power to unprivileged consumptions. But naturally, the railways didn't think that it was liable to pay this simply because of it tag a deemed distribution license. So it felt that if it paid these extra charges, its electricity cost would go up again, and that would mean that this cost would be passed on to passengers, increasing their ticket price. At least that's the argument that the railway made before the APTEL. Now, now, now that the ball was in APTEL's court, here's how it looked at the case. It split into two parts. It had to confirm if the railways was really a deemed distribution license. If it was, would it still have to pay these extra charges to discoms? To figure out the answer to the first question, the APTEL had to check if the railway actually had an electricity distribution system, and if it is supplied electricity to consumer. Obviously, the railway distributed electricity through its electricity line and different substations and businesses at railway stations. However, the APTEL didn't think that this really was a supply consumer relationship. It was rather than a landlord tenant relationship, and that meant it didn't quite involve in the sale of electricity. Quashed quashed the deemed distribution license status, and CERC had given it back to 2015, and that means the railway had to compensate these discounts. What a what a coincidence! But let's say the railway was still considered a but let's say railways was still considered a deemed distribution license. Would it still have to pay? Yes, and that's simply because the railways used to all electricity is sources from its own operations. Because railways used all the electricity it sourced from its own operations. It didn't save up anything and sell the excess electricity to the consumer. Besides, if the railway didn't pay discoms, it would mean that discoms would make up for this loss by increasing electricity prices for the other consumer like you and me. So yeah, that's why the railway will see their electricity bill rise by around 2500 crore. and that could even mean higher ticket prices. What do you think? Until then, stay safe and stay happy.